Hi everyone, we're Stuart and Dave Bell, father and son. I'm Stuart, founder of Alive Church and the Ground Level Network of Churches.
And I'm Dave, a worship leader and songwriter, and together we're launching Church Chat, a space where we can talk openly about church, family, and life from two generations of experience.
We've seen the good, the bad, and the downright interesting. And while we certainly don't have all the answers, we've learned a few valuable lessons along the way.
So why not join us now for heartfelt, faith-filled conversations designed to encourage you, challenge you, and hopefully help you on your own journey. Hey everybody, well, welcome back. This is episode 2 of our brand new series in this little podcast, Church Chat.
Yeah.
So we looked at the first level of leadership. We're now going to look at the second. And just like you do, I've made them all begin with the same letter.
This is called alliteration, Dave.
Alliteration. Thank you for that. And so, so we had calling and career, the battle between the two.
Right.
And then now we're looking at if you've established the call of God in your life, and like you and Mum did from an early age, the knocking down of the wall to let more people into the house, saying, I'm going to follow the call of God on my life and stay in this city, plant the church. But the next level really is the commitment to that call. Are you going to stay the path? Are you going to remain committed to the call of God on your life? And what enables you to do that is your character.
Right.
So this one is a bit different because I thought we could actually just talk a little bit more about family life.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that people know the person, how is the person off the platform as well as on the platform? How do you do family life? Talk about marriage, talk about parenting, because these are the major things, because I think we'd both agree our first platform is our family, not necessarily standing up on a Sunday morning and preaching.
Yeah.
So, and we notice time and time again, this isn't usually where things suffer. This is the area of compromise, or this is the area where things necessarily go wrong behind the scenes, and we can put a good show on a Sunday, but everything's falling apart at home. And I'll go on record to say you and Mum have done a wonderful job at not only parenting me and my other two siblings, but also just some of those other areas of how you've managed finance and how marriage has been like totally of utmost importance and all of those type of things. So I thought we could delve in, but you did have a little issue that you wanted to raise with me.
Well, that's very kind what you're saying, Dave, and I'll come back to some of those things. Thank you. Only I did want to just mention the cartoon. The graphic. Perhaps you whoever did that did make me look rather elderly. I do admit, obviously, age is creeping quite quickly.
You're wearing it well.
My life.
But,
what does?
Well, you know, this modern thing, I know we joked a little bit in the first thing because you couldn't quite remember what an
electrical, yeah.
So there is a modern thing called AI.
I know that.
Artificial
I know these things.
I know you do. So what I did was I put a photo of me and you into a program, and I said, hey, can you help me with this?
Well, it shows it's got a long way to go then, doesn't it?
It shows there are some flaws in the system.
Yeah.
But I was relatively happy.
Well, yeah, but you look quite good, and I look pretty...
You actually look like a young George Bush.
Yeah. Well, this is why I thought I'd bring this up.
Okay, well,
anyway.
I'm sorry, that's what we're sticking with.
Yeah.
But for future things, if there are any designers out there that want to have a go at changing that'd be fine.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so the two churches have merged. You have become the senior pastor of what is a large church. Also, not only leading a large church here in Lincoln, but responsible for a large event called Grapevine back in the day. And then what's come out of that was then also the leadership of a network of churches, which now today is called Ground Level, that has just under 180, 90 churches in, not only in the UK, some in Europe, some across in the States as well. And you're leading all of that. How do you do all of that, but then still be a good dad
Yeah.
and be a good husband
Yeah.
All of those type.
Well, I wouldn't want you to think that we've been perfect in all of that.
Sure.
And in fact, when I was involved in the band that we talked about last time, I was definitely away from home far too long.
Sure.
Andrew was a small boy. Sometimes I would be. The longest I was away was 6 weeks. Wow. Went to Holland, I believe, where we, were playing most days in Holland for a 6-week period. In those days, couldn't contact home much. Had to write literal letters.
Wow.
Those paper things.
Really?
And so I do regret long periods away from home. In fact, as a band, we did modify the amount of time we were out, so we learned a few lessons with that. But I think it has been a major priority that looking at the example of some of the great leaders of the past, I think automatically of people like Billy Graham, who for years was a man of integrity. Yeah. I always wanted to be as close to being the same person on platforms and pulpits as I am at home. Yeah. And that's not the easiest thing in the world. And to kind of assume that, we're all doing everything really well, I think we've learned as we've gone on. Of course, for me, it was really a lot easier because I found the right woman.
It's helpful.
Well, it's easy to say this, but to know, years on, that I am pleased that I made the choice, we made the choice to be together, live together.
So true.
And so the foundations of our marriage were genuine love, but also friendship. And often when people talk about marriage, there has to be that, you're my best friend. And sometimes it can be a bit cheesy when you put those things out, but that would be the truth. So Irene is my life partner and best friend.
Yes.
And so that becomes the foundation of that. Mm. And then together, of course, as children arrive, and I think the beauty of this has been that Irene has always prioritized family before anything else. Yeah. And our gift mix is quite different, which means that she would see the call of God on her life very much, first and foremost, to bring up children in a godly way and the right way. Yeah. And still to this day, she'll defend the kids and the grandkids.
We can do no wrong in her.
Oh, absolutely. And so her investment in children and grandchildren is still huge. Yeah. Which then relieves, if you like, the pressure when there are leadership gatherings, things I've had to do, traveling and those kind of things has not been as burdensome, if you like, as it could have been. Yeah. But I think both of us have always felt that it'd be a sad thing if we do quite well in church and ministry but fail with our family. Sure. Yeah. And so you may remember this, but from when we first had children, I remember I started a little thing called every Thursday would be treat night. Treat night, yeah. And
I don't think that's continued in later years. Maybe we want to revisit that.
Yeah, but well, you did say we're going out to lunch after this, and I guess I'll be paying.
I don't think
so. But anyway, this concept of taking children, but giving space to each individual. Yeah. And so to try and be quite creative with that. Yes. And when I was younger, picking kids up from school and saying, right, do you want to go to Skegness for the evening? And then we'd drive, fish and chips. And
so we've got myself, Andrew and Becky.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew is 13 years older than me.
Right.
You're aware of that?
I am aware. I don't always remember the numbers, but
Becky's 10 years older than me. Yeah. So I've always wondered. That's a.
You've always wondered what, Dave?
Well, it's a significant age gap, and I've I've tried.
Well, shall I give you an answer to that?
I don't really want to know the intricate.
Well,
details,
it's not intricate.
but I was kind of thinking, was it Dad's? The churches have merged. Everything's going really, really well. Dad's preached on a Sunday, new Pentecostal feel, so everybody's giving him some encouragement. Offering was at an all-time high. Mum's absolutely fine.
All of that's quite irrelevant.
Maybe you got carried away and the Davy boys come along. Is that the case?
No.
Okay, fine.
I think, you weren't an afterthought or an accident.
I appreciate that.
I just want you to know that. But some of our discussions behind the scenes were to do with Mum's health.
Yes.
And you'll perhaps learn things you've never heard before.
Okay.
But she had back problems to the degree where some of the advice she was getting was perhaps we didn't ought to have more children.
Yeah.
Because when Becky was born, there was significant back problems. And as you know, she had surgery.
Yeah.
There is something that has kind of been a sadness in our lives is Irene's really struggled for as long as I've known her.
And many people wouldn't even know that.
No, and she's had back surgery and other things that have been quite a challenge. Yeah. But I think Irene kind of insisted, your mother insisted, no, I think we need another child.
Yeah.
And actually that space of time, which feels long to you, we still felt young as parents, and it was a bit of a shock when we realised we were a bit older when we went to the gate to pick you up.
Yeah.
But actually, you were thought of. In fact, there are some real stories about the call of God that we felt you would have.
Yes. That
we sensed before you even came into this world.
And this is amazing talking about this, because we may pick up on in future episodes a little bit of my story.
Yeah.
And obviously now having children myself, talking about parenting and marriage is obviously really important, because I think you probably agree, certainly Christian marriage is hugely under attack here, especially in the UK, around the world. It seems to be an easy target for the enemy. And I think that I've probably got a couple of views on that, but maybe would you agree that some of these, what I would consider to be unbreakable promises that we make stood at the front of a church, our wedding vows, nowadays sometimes becomes now words of compromise rather than those unbreakable promises and those foundations that we say before a congregation and before God. And so we're obviously, we talk about this kind of stuff a lot. And we've been married now 19 years this year. Would you believe it? 19 years. How many years have you been married?
50, is it 3?
It is. I don't actually know.
It's around there. Irene, listening to this, would correct that very quickly.
And I suppose if we were to talk just a little bit on marriage and then maybe on parenting, because these are the foundational things that help us, I suppose, in ministry. I suppose for some people our age, we do things quite differently. We would be... we adopt a number of different things in our marriage that some people won't even have thought about, and that is because it's an easy target, isn't it, for the enemy to disrupt and distort. So we do a number of practical things, like we as a church staff here, we don't share a car with the opposite sex and those type of things, and a lot of people nowadays just think that's overcautious and religious and silly. And so I'm a big believer in kind of the protection of marriage and protecting it with your life. And once you leave the door open to something, it only gets wider and wider. And so what would your advice be for when we hear sad stories of where things haven't gone right and those type of things? What's some of the things that you and Mum have lived by that has enabled you to...
Well, it can be complex because the interplay between your life in terms of church leadership with family, can be quite difficult, because sometimes you're dealing with big issues in church.
Yeah.
You're not always popular on everything you preach or teach. And what we've tried to do, and not always succeeded in, is not bringing church issues too much, so that children are hearing some of the broken relationships, disturbances, things that sometimes you want to talk those things out, and you've got to talk those things in the right places. That's why I am pleased that through the years we've had teams of leaders, so that you're not on your own, you're not isolated, and so on. But I think it's very, very important that we're not shaped by the culture of our day.
Yeah.
And this is where the problem comes, I think, where people assume certain behavior is okay because everybody does it this way.
Yeah.
And one of the things to do with Israel was that Israel was always the people were different.
Yeah.
And that difference often was something that was not liked, and and hence anti-Semitic behavior and all of that differences. And sometimes, because we as Christians want to be accepted, we don't want enemies and so on, I think we sometimes drift on some of the fundamental issues to do with relationships and so on. So I think what I would say is that as couples, we communicate strongly and well on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We give time to fun as well as faith.
Yes.
That's so true with children being brought up. If they think that being part of a church is boring and rules and regulations, and sometimes that's why we don't want to put, you can't do this, you can't do that. We don't want a condemnation.
Yeah.
So when people, in leadership fall and so on, so easy, isn't it, to point the finger?
Yeah.
But I think it's better to say, let's recognize there are battles. Let's make sure that we are communicating well as couples. Let's set certain boundaries with regard to behavior in place, and let's ask God to protect those relationships.
Yeah.
Because it is true that the enemy is out to set people up, to harm people. Scriptures are filled with those kind of things. Yeah. And so it ultimately still comes back to a trusting God and relying on the power and presence of the Holy Spirit, because we're all fallible. We've all said things historically that we regret. And so it's vitally important that we, every day, we have a commitment to Christ, but that commitment to Christ means that we're wanting the work of the Holy Spirit to develop us. You talk about commitment and character. And so often with a Pentecostal experience, we major on the gifts and the power and the presence of God. Yeah. But also we need to recognize the fruit of the Spirit, which comes over a period of time. The more we live this out, the Holy Spirit helps us. Yeah. And those fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, and patience, those attributes of God, things to do with purity and holiness, come through a period of time of setting, if you like, a rhythm of how these things can be. The obvious things like daily prayer. In our early married days, we didn't always pray together or do things together spiritually. As we've got older, we've done that more and more and more, because it's, I think, important where, the Bible says you can become one flesh, which means you begin to think the same, walk the same. In fact, it's interesting, isn't it? Often people start to look the same. They carry this, and yet we're still very different people. And so part of our journey has been, Lord, we don't want to mess it up. We want to give ourselves to the work of the church, but we don't want to do that at the expense of harming family relationships, children, grandchildren. We want to model those things well. And but character develops, doesn't it, over a period of time? And all of us will be working on areas, for some it's temper, for others they're struggling with thought life. And I think to pretend that because you are called into ministry, somehow you're exempt from those temptations. It talks, doesn't it, about Jesus was tempted in every area as we are, but without sin. But temptations do come, pressures come, and we don't always get everything right. But I think good communication, clearly some levels of accountability as well. Because often in leadership forums, people talk about accountability, but you only know whether you're accountable if you're held to account. What I've found is if you say no to someone over an issue, they can take that really negatively and then pull away. Whereas actually good friends will press through with a bit of challenge. And I know in my ministry life, there have been people around me that have helped me. I could tell you a few names. Barney Coombs was a man that often challenged me on certain things. And I remember back to David Pawson. David Pawson one day said to me, "You've got an inferiority complex. It's either natural or the devil, but get rid of it." And there would be certain people that would be highly offended. But I said, yeah, I do have I still struggle with levels of inferiority. But to have people challenge you, to be able to say, be careful in that area. And what tends to happen, people just don't want to offend, so they remain quiet. And sometimes when things develop that people are observing, but they don't have the courage to challenge it. And we don't always get it right, and we don't want to be trying to catch people out. But good pastoral ministry will have a care for people's souls and for their families and for the way they live. So accountability to pastoral ministry, I think, is important. And some of those things help.
Sarah's often said the call of God over our family is going to be no good if we don't all arrive together. And that's so important. So for newly married couples, so much advice that we would, from things that we've seen and learned, and friendship groups are really important. And how you've said about we're called not necessarily to fit in, we're called to stand out. And another good illustration of that is the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. So when you walk in the room, are you a spiritual thermometer where you're only going to rise to the level of the room? Or are you going to walk in the room and be that spiritual thermostat where you set the temperature, you set the culture? And that's the same with marriage, choosing your friendship groups, what you watch on TV, you praying together, and just being aware of all of those things. And it's the same for parenting. I was thinking of with how busy you were, but then still finding the time to be with me. And I remember we used to go to the West Common, didn't we? At least once a week. So you would obviously come back, being from work, and we'd go and we'd play football together. And then later on in life, I played for a football team, and you'd often come and still find the time to be able to come and watch me. What would you say to people watching who are struggling, maybe even church leaders, because sometimes you can do all of the right things as a parent and still it somehow doesn't work. We'll have friends, won't we, who are pastors of churches, have been amazing parents, but their kids aren't.
We've got to make this comment, haven't we? That this is never foolproof.
No.
Because you three as our children are doing well, are in the church, and the grandkids are, is not how well we've done. because there are people that have perhaps parented better than ourselves, or they've certainly, done things really, really well. Yeah. And I can think of a number who are really, really sad today because children have drifted from the faith, and one or two really have got themselves into problems. All of us are responsible for our own lives, aren't we? So all we can do up until a certain age. And I do think perhaps one thing I could say is to be a little bit more clear in those early formative, perhaps the first, up to the Jews may say the bar mitzvah.
I was thinking about that, and I may be I might get away with it. I'm a bit strong on these things, but you're right in saying that, in that there are some incredible leaders and parents, and there is, everybody's responsible for their own. But I was thinking about that because our kids really enjoy coming to church at the moment, which is great. We've got 4 children and they enjoy being here. Yeah. And I was trying to work out a little bit, and I think we adopt some of the things that you guys do. We try not to talk about leadership issues in front of them, those type of things. And we want to make church a great, fun-filled experience where they want to be. But there is just sometimes where you have to do the hard line as a parent, because if your 10-year-old little girl or boy doesn't want to go to church, well, they might not want to brush their teeth in the morning. Yeah. But we know the importance of it.
This is where sometimes there would be disagreement.
Sure, I get that.
And people would think we were too controlling or whatever. Yeah. But to be honest, I'd rather be a little bit that way than just liberal and loose on. Yes. But then that would be my stand with discipline as well. Because
I've been on the receiving end of discipline.
Because in some ways, certain people would say, let your kids be experimental, and that could include drawing on the wallpaper. And I'm not in that camp.
Neither am I, so that's fine.
Yeah, perhaps I could turn this round slightly to you and commend you. Because actually, I think if I look back on our journey, and hopefully we modelled it quite well, but I think you and Sarah have modelled it better in many ways. And I say that because we're in a harder environment today than in the days we came up.
Yeah.
So to say to you, son, this is father-son chat.
Okay.
Is you've done really well at that, and I think keep doing that, and don't be afraid, because you'll have contemporaries that will disagree with you're being too strong, and you'll have contemporaries that say, well, your kids might like church but mine don't.
Yes.
And part of that is you like church.
Yeah.
And this is important as well, because if we enjoy being in God's presence and we lift up. Now, we all get into moan times, and Irene and I have said the last thing we want to become is grumpy old people.
Yeah.
And there are signs occasionally we get a bit grumpy.
I've not noticed that.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it. I'm sure you have, really.
A couple of times.
Yeah. But I think our desire is to make sure that we keep this right the way through.
Yeah.
But to commend you really for that being a big part and essential. It's partly because of what you've been through, which we're going to talk about later. But it's partly also because you've got the right person.
Oh,
so Sarah, for instance, with all the promises of God on her life, again about children, that's part of it. And of course, Andrew isn't married, but lives in a very consistent, and God's blessing him, etc. And therefore, it's good to say that, the things we're talking about, marriage, children, and so on, we also need to say that some people's call is to singleness.
Yes.
And then there comes all kinds of issues with that. And also, while I mentioned Andrew, Becky and Glenn, again, have come into a great relationship. All of this, as I look back, is God's goodness rather than our competence. And so, Becky, this will interest you, Dave. I think you know this, but I used to take you footballing.
Yes.
But Becky, sometimes lunchtimes, we would have heading competitions because she really liked football at the time. Yeah. And we used to do heading, used to go running with her.
Yeah.
And we used to have fun, in her world as well. And now, 2 grandchildren there that are really doing well, part of the church, etc. And part of this is, part of it's we've done our best.
Yeah.
But the other thing is just God's goodness and his grace.
Yeah.
Because there are others, as you know, that have done similar things, but the children of this time are not
at this moment
where they are. So again, what you do with that then is important. We're coming back into character.
Yeah.
Do you say God's let us down, or do you believe, keep praying? I was in a prayer gathering in Scotland yesterday, actually, Dave, and one of the things we prayed for quite a long time was bring back the prodigals.
Yeah.
Now, we've done that for some time, but it's God's desire that people that have drifted come back. In fact, wouldn't the church be great if all those that have dipped out come back?
No, I really agree. And we are thankful for the blessings of God, and just to say that 2 of our boys are getting baptized next month.
That's
so we thank the leadership here, our youth leaders who have helped that kind of thing, and that's absolutely amazing for us. And suppose wrapping up a little bit of this episode, we've spoken a little bit about the off the platform, the character that's behind. Rick Warren, I know I quote Rick Warren a lot.
Yeah.
He says that it's always about...
quite purpose-driven.
He is. He's very purpose-driven. He talks about having role models. And actually, he said this before some of the stuff came out in the media, but he said, pick a dead one because you know that they'll have finished well.
And that's interesting.
And isn't it sad, though, isn't it? Some of these things that are happening now with... not, when it comes to that time and just people just not finishing well. And so our prayer is that we finish strong and all of those type of things. But who would be, as we close, tell me some of who your role models were?
Well, I was helped ministry-wise by certain specific people. Gerald Coates was one who... was quite a controversial figure in so many ways, but I think what I liked was he resisted just religion and rules and was passionate for churches that were free in the spirit, etc. But also he had a unique desire to impact society. So, he would be involved in big things. I remember him interviewing in the Albert Hall. He was part of that Wembley with Noel Richards and other things. So for me, that kind of pushing the boat out, faith, I would have tended, if I'd not met him, to be quite parochial, small thinking. He helped me expand those things. Next week, I shall be with Terry Virgo at a gathering where he is. I would see him as a man of integrity that has modelled family well, etc., etc. There are many people that you could look to and say these are great models of faith. You look at a Nicky Gumbel who, having to face that profile and again. Really good. I mentioned Jean Darnell earlier, and that mothering quality, I think as I look back, she was a blessing at a particular time with a slightly different angle, care, concern. And later in her life, I actually, I'd not seen her for years. I went with, you remember Bishop Joseph Garlington? I went with Joseph Garlington to Jack Hayford's church just to accompany him.
Yeah.
And who should be taking one of the congregations in Jack Hayford's church but Jean Darnell, late in her years.
Wow.
And I walked into the building, and as I walked forward, she recognized me. This is years and years on.
Yeah.
And she put her arms around me and said, my son, my son, my son.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I would never in a million years have thought she thought that about me.
That's great.
And yet, looking back, she invested in me. And, it was because of her that Come Together, the musical years ago, came to the country, came to Lincoln Cathedral, well-known guy of the time, had a number one in the charts. She brought him to Lincoln Cathedral again. There was Come Together. There were a number of musicals that she brought. So again, and I think these people helped me lift out of the sort of local, small, to that bigger world picture. Yeah. But all of them contributed to that investment in my life. Hopefully for the better in terms of character and all of those things.
There's been some amazing people. I'm thinking about, I suppose, for my journey, going more down a worship leading path, obviously Chris Bowater. Yeah. Remember, just in the early days, probably been 5 or 6 years old, looking up at the platform at Grapevine and seeing what he did. And obviously one of our favourite songs, Jesus Shall Take the Highest Honour. And then for me, Johnny Markin, who was a major inspiration for me.
And he was great when he came back recently.
No, wasn't it good?
To hear that.
But yes, there's so many. And for us personally, obviously for me and Sarah, we would count you and Mum as great role models. We're also thinking at this time a great model, Paul Milligan, who's been incredible for our family, and just grateful for people who have run the race well.
Yeah, there are certain sort of father, mother figures that have a particular level of input into our lives, and I'm grateful for quite a few of those. Yeah. But also friends, alongside. So the ground level team, which we set up, and it's had different morphings and changes, but some of those. But we were just good friends on adventure together.
So important to have friends. Yeah. Leadership can be a bit of a lonely place at times. So having good friends. Well, I think that's probably enough. So
I think so.
This was the second episode of that second level that we're talking about commitment to the call of God on your life.
What I tend to do, Dave, is have a repeat of the points so people understand. Our first ones were...
calling over Korea.
There you go.
And the battle between the two. But then moving on from that, once you've established the call of God on your life, it's remaining committed to the call, and what keeps you there is your character.
Great.
Are you excited for the number 3?
Where are we going for 3?
I can't remember. So
okay, we'll chat about that next time.
Great.
Thanks, mate.